hello. Hi, everyone. Let me know if everything sounds and looks okay. I'm having some weird issues right now in Twitch, and I can't really see chat on Twitch. I can only see it in Streamlabs. So I'm going to keep an eye on it here. But let me know if everything looks and sounds okay on your end. Oh, great. Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. It's been a while since I've done a Twitch stream. Oof. We're off. We're off to a great start. I'm drinking tea. It's not caffeinated, so I have no excuse. Whenever I say something that starts with "it's been," I can't decide if I want to say "it's been a while" or "it's been." Does anyone else do that? 90s kids will remember. 1 week. Yep. See, thanks. Okay, good. You get me. I figured you would relate to that. Well, hi. Thank you for joining me. My cat is in the room, which could be a disaster. She's sleeping right now, and I didn't want to take her out of the room because she's very precious. And the door is cracked open, which I usually close the door. So I told my husband that I'm streaming, so he doesn't just wander in when he gets home. But we'll see how that goes. The Gaba has blessed you. Yes, she has. She's graced me with her presence. She is a nice sleepy kitty on the chair in my office. And yeah, that's the best case scenario, because sometimes she'll come in here and she'll want to sit on my lap and be all up in my face. She likes when I hold her like a baby, and she likes to smush her face against my face, which I enjoy when I'm not actively in a meeting or trying to do something on Twitch. So I usually don't let her in the office. I prefer when she's in here. She's my little buddy, but we'll see. Today seems to be a good day. She's been in here with me all day today. So fingers crossed. So happy almost New Year. I hope everyone is doing okay. I know it's been a year. I promise I won't do that the whole stream. It has been a really weird year. I saw an interesting post on Twitter today. One of the few times I've actually gone on Twitter in the past 2 weeks. It's been weird, but kind of nice. But someone was talking about how every year everyone is like, oh, this was such a bad year. And normally I agree that it seems like everyone collectively has a bad year every single year. But I think that it's fair to say that this year, because this year was genuinely weird. With the pandemic that just overshadowed everything. It was just really hard and collectively traumatic. And then that just kind of compounded other difficult things, because I believe that every year we go through wonderful things and difficult things, but this year the difficult things were even harder. Either they were related to COVID or COVID made them more difficult. I had a loss in my family recently, and even though it wasn't COVID related, COVID made it so we couldn't all see each other and, grieve together and be together. And so that's kind of why I think this year felt harder than usual, is because it just made everything so much worse. And it was just stressful. I just didn't sleep very well this year, always worrying about, people I care about. And I don't know, we're all worried about our jobs and the economy. And I mean, that's less important than life, but still things that everyone is worried about. So I don't know. It's been a year, and I think it's totally fair game this year to say that this year wasn't great. You don't have to feel good all the time. Let me know. I increased my volume a little bit. I know every time I'm let me know if my volume's okay, but it's so hard for me to tell on my end. So let me know. And also Andrew had put a little bit of copper on my pop filter. It's really pretty because it matches my keyboard. You want to see my keyboard? Let me move my tea so I don't knock over everything. Cool, my volume is perfect. Thank you for letting me know. So I got this amazing keyboard. It's actually wireless, but I had to charge it because I've been using it all week. It is a beautiful typewriter-inspired keyboard. It's amazing. I'm obsessed with it. Every time I have a meeting this week with my colleagues, I'm like, you want to see my keyboard? And they're like, okay, I guess. But yeah, it's really cool. And I actually kind of not redid, but just rearranged my setup, my desk, to complement my keyboard. Whenever I get a new addition to my home office, I basically try to tailor the theme to that. So that's been fun. But yeah, anyway, this year's weird and hard, And I've had some good moments, but it's definitely a lot of low moments. And so I'm at the point now where I'm just like, I'm tired of reflecting. I'm tired of thinking back on the year. I'm tired of thinking about all the things I've learned the hard way. I do think that's good to reflect on the year, but it's like at some point I'm just like, okay, let's just move on. let's just get the new year going. And obviously we're still in a global pandemic, so there's not some magic switch that will just make everything easier. But I don't know. I just feel like we're going into the next year a little bit more informed about things. The pandemic should not have caught us all off guard, but it did. You know, it's like, I think we knew as a society eventually there was going to be a thing like this, but we just didn't put any resources into the things that mattered. And then we were all like, what do we do now? And so that happened a lot this year. I felt that way about like the wildfires that were like all along the West Coast. It's like, we know every year that there are going to be wildfires. We need to collectively put more time and effort into, you know, figuring out what happens next year when there will inevitably be more wildfires. And so those are the things I've been thinking a lot about lately, is like, what are the lessons I learned that I can apply to next year so that, you know, if and when things happen, will I feel more prepared? Or I don't know. But it's hard to do that. So there's only so many things in your control, you know? So yeah, that's my spiel for New Year's. I'm curious if any of you pick a word for your year. I posted on Instagram that I had picked the word liminal for my year, or for my word of 2021. And around this time every year, I do pick a word that is kind of like abstract. It's not really something that's like a guide. It's more just like, what do I think will encompass the next year? And sometimes it can be like a little cryptic. And I felt like liminal really fit because it's all about like being in transition. And there's, you know, the whole concept of like liminal spaces, like kind of the space between waking and dreaming. And I feel like this whole year has felt like a weird liminal space. And so I still feel that way. And we're on the threshold of a new year. And I don't know. I hope that we can all find ways to find joy next year. And hopefully things will improve with the pandemic. I mean, fingers crossed. It's gone on longer than I think a lot of us have expected. So let's see. I picked rebirth. There was a lot of metaphorical death in my life. Ooh, rebirth. That's a really powerful concept. I think a lot of people could probably relate to that one. Yeah, metaphorical death. That's a good, that's an interesting way to put that. I feel like this year was a year where we were confronted with actual mortality, you know, like thinking about death on a societal level in ways that I don't always think that we do. But also just like the transitions and changes in our lives. I think it really caused us to look at what's most important in our lives. What are the most important relationships in our lives? Things like that. And whatever really didn't fit that, we kind of gave up on, or like, you know, got rid of, which sounds more callous than I'm trying to find the right word there. But I think you get what I mean. Like, it was just kind of a year where I think we did all get really retrospective, and things ended. Sometimes in good ways, sometimes in bad ways, but yeah, that's a good one. Still searching for my word. Yeah, I don't know. I had no idea. And then I forgot even what I was looking at, and the word like liminal came up, and I was like, that's it. You kind of know it when you find it. My word for this year was mindfulness, which actually I think ended up being pretty applicable, not because I'm like, you know, perfectly chill and zen, as you know, but it just was more that I did become very introspective, very reflective, really did take time this year to rest and reprioritize. I've done a lot of reprioritizing in my life, especially in the last few months. And so I think in a way that mindfulness kind of helped. It really did bring me into the present this year, you know, like just getting through day-to-day life, you know, was hard this year. Even when, you know, whether you're at home or you still had, you know, to maintain your job, like I think we all still kind of got into these routines because there's not really a whole lot else to do right now other than just make it through the day. So yeah, I really lived in the present this year in a way I have not in a long time. It really made me question a lot of my long-term goals in, I think, mostly positive ways, but it was kind of hard because I'm someone who is always thinking about the future and always, you know, having, you know, aspirations and dreams for the future. And it's not that I don't anymore. They're just different than they were. Probably better, a little bit more realistic. Let's see. My word for 2021 is shift, because there's going to be a lot of change, finishing school, looking for a job. And because I'm going into this year with all caps on baby. Yes. I feel like I should dab. I don't know. I don't know why I'm like, I haven't streamed in like a month. Gotta get all my like weird Twitch energy out. Andrew keeps saying, like, dab on your hater's grave. He sent me a text once and he's like, when I die, please don't dab on my grave. I was like, what? I mean, okay, that's not probably what I would have thought to do in the first place, but also, where is this coming from? Yeah. I've been pondering restorative of the things we lost, but also the parts of me that I felt disconnected to. Restoring my creativity, my connection with me, restoring my peace, restoring my strength, restoring my joy. I'm not settled on it, but it's been on my mind. Oh, I think that's a wonderful word and a wonderful perspective on that. And I think that, yeah, being disconnected is, as the kids say, that's a vibe, a big mood. But I felt that way a lot lately, and I think it's just because I've been home a lot. I work from home, so I don't have a reason to leave the house, and I've been really trying to follow, the recommendations to not go anywhere and be around other people. And sometimes you do start to feel like disconnected. You start to feel like less of a normal person, whatever that means. I think normal's, not the best word, but I think you get what I mean. Just like a member of the world, of society. And yeah, I think hopefully next year you will find a lot of those connections again within yourself. I think that's a really, really nice way to think of that. So let me know if you think of other words that you can have more than one word. There's no rules. I think 2020 taught us anything. There's no rules. Do whatever you want. I ate tacos for breakfast, and they were not breakfast tacos. So really ending 2020 with a bang. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about our topic for today. It's funny because I feel weirdly not underprepared for this stream, which is silly because you don't have to prepare for a stream. This is just my self-imposed expectations where I'm like, if I don't have everything figured out 100%, then no one will want to watch it. But I'm trying to let things like that go. I've been thinking a lot about perfectionism because I am really leaning more toward things being good enough. And I know that sounds kind of, I know to folks in the chat, I'm also a self-proclaimed perfectionist in some ways. And I know that that'll probably go against, what we should all be aspiring for. But I've just been thinking a lot about perfectionism and how I really think that it comes from a place of insecurity when we strive for that. And that I just feel like if I know in my heart that I've done my best, that I've taken the time to like learn something or, really like put in the time to like develop my craft, then I will feel okay about putting things out into the world that aren't 100% perfect because perfection is not real, fake news. And I just think it holds us back from sometimes just doing things. And I really feel like the more you just like get used to doing things, the easier it gets to just do things. And so I think that it's important to be, detail oriented, but I think we conflate being detail oriented, being like careful and thoughtful with being perfect, with perfectionism. And so maybe just something to think about, something that I've just been thinking a lot about is like, I don't really strive to be perfect. I just strive to do a good job and to put effort into things. And I don't know, that's just going to be what it is. Because I don't really want to hold myself back from doing things. In a way, like I haven't streamed a lot in the past few weeks because I've just, first of all, been so busy, mentally tapped out, dealing with family stuff like I mentioned, and just like feeling like if I didn't have time to put together a stream, it just like really wasn't worth it. And then I kind of, not forced myself, but I really tried to urge myself kindly to just stream and just not overthink it. So that's what I'm doing today. Not overthinking it, a little overthinking it, but it's progress. So that kind of is a good segue into the topic for today, which is my digital Commonplace project. So let's talk about what a Commonplace is, because this is something that I've known about for many years. It's a really old kind of traditional concept that I think can be done in really cool and new ways. So let me actually switch over to my other view. Let me move my stuff around. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat over here. Perfectionism is my downfall. I'm trying to live with good enough. It's hard. And I feel like it kind of goes against some of our nature to not strive for perfectionism. But I just think in the context of like creativity, but also just life, sometimes you just have to try something and put it out there. And not everything we do is the perfect best thing. It's all a process, but the more you do that, the easier it gets to do that and to kind of let go of the things that don't matter as much. But it's definitely not easy. And I think especially as creatives and people who, care a lot about our crafts and our skills, we do want to do good work. And I don't think good enough means like work that you haven't put time into. It's just, are you using perfectionism as an excuse to not pursue something that could make a really big difference for you? So I don't know, something to think about. Okay. I am going to switch my screen. Okay. So I will talk a little bit about this whole page that you see in front of you. But I wanted to start with what a commonplace book is. So traditionally, a commonplace is something that was a book format. Essentially, what it is a notebook or some sort of journal, a scrapbook, where people would jot down things that they would learn throughout the year or any sort of, arbitrary timeline. It was basically just a way for them to write down notes, write down random thoughts, put in like pictures or little cards and things that they would obtain, throughout a certain period of time. And it just became a way to kind of like collectively wrangle all of the things that we, learn and talk about on a regular basis. And what is cool is that people would then share their commonplace books with other people. And so that's kind of what I want to do with my project and what I hope that you'll be inspired to do with your project as well. So I have this article by Susan Stewart from the Writing Cooperative. I didn't include the whole article, but you can check it out. It's just what is a commonplace book. And she writes, as far back as people have had the tools and education to write, they've written down interesting quotes from authors, philosophers, and scientists. They include references to those who wrote centuries earlier, conversations and business dealings, passages from books they read, bits of overheard conversation, story ideas, recipes, potions, sketches for artworks, and ideas for inventions were all noted in their commonplace book. Most commonplace books were small notebooks. So that's something that you might want to think about as we talk about commonplace projects today, is if you do want to start one, what's the format going to be for you? I am using a digital format for reasons that we'll talk about shortly, but I think there's something really special about having a physical commonplace book that you can keep and use as a scrapbook throughout the year. But I think there's some benefits to using digital as well. There's no one answer. It's really what works best for you. Let's see. What else was I going to share here? A commonplace book is a way to capture the thoughts and words of those who can inspire us to new ideas, a seed of a new novel, an understanding of man's place on earth. Despite the gendered language, I feel like that's something that I think we're all thinking about now, especially as this year has caused us to reprioritize what is our purpose, what is our role in life and society, in all those really casual thoughts, that we just think about all the time. But they're more than that. They are a place to record thoughts and ideas that you don't quite comprehend. They give you an opportunity to think beyond your understanding of the world and how it functions. So that, I think, is an important consideration for your commonplace, is that it doesn't have to be finished things, finished thoughts, finished learnings. It's just a way to capture all of those things that occur to you on a regular basis. And I think this is an interesting point. So we have copies of many commonplace books written by people, mostly men, who changed the course of history. They were not a diary recording their everyday activities, but a place to ponder a dilemma in search of an answer. And I thought that was, to me, that's really what distinguishes between my kitty's on the move. Okay, I left the door cracked open, so maybe she'll just slink out and we'll be good. Because if she comes on my desk now, it's gonna be a big deal. So I like this as an approach to journaling. It's not about writing down every single thing that you do in your life. It's more about the learnings and the takeaways rather than it's about the things that you're doing, if that makes sense. And then there's some other examples of people who did Commonplace books. And again, there are a lot of like people whose names we know throughout history, whether or not that's aspirational or not, but just, something to think about. So what I like about the idea of a Commonplace book and what I think would be really cool to bring back is the idea of sharing. I think that I've been really reflecting on social media lately because it really is causing me a lot of anxiety and an introspection about how I want to use it, why I'm using it, what I'm getting out of it. And I think a lot of my current anxiety about it is that I want to connect with people and learn about the things that make them, excited and passionate. And I want to engage with people who are sharing their art. What I want less of, and this isn't anything specific, this is just like, just a general thought on the world, is like almost less opinion. That sounds bad. It's not that I think everyone should feel totally entitled to share their opinion, but I think a lot of opinions are things that we don't really think a lot about, and before posting them, we just kind of like share random thoughts. And I think that everyone is using social media so differently that it just becomes hard when we don't know the boundaries there. Like, is this an opinion? Is this a researched perspective? Not everything has to be a research perspective. But just like, I don't know. I just feel like the way that we're consuming each other's information isn't as valuable as it could be. And I don't mean value in this like capitalistic sense of like everything should, contribute to like purpose or something important. But I don't know. It's like, here's, I guess, an example. If someone reads a book that they love, I want to know what their favorite quotes are. I want to know what they really liked about it, more than I just necessarily want to know about the fact that they read a book. Does that make sense? So part of what I think a Commonplace could be is it would be cool if we shared our takeaways from things a little bit more with that insight, because I think that's really special when we can learn from one another, because no two people will have the same takeaways from something. So I don't know. I guess I don't want to go on a rant or a tangent, and I don't even know exactly how to articulate really how I've been feeling about, social media, but just something to think about, and why I think a Commonplace book is a cool project, because it's a way to still share and still, celebrate the things that you have, consumed or read or are working on in a way that is, I don't know, more just like understanding that everything's an experiment. Everything is something that we're actively learning. And I think if we have a better appreciation for how each other learns, that is something that could be really special. So anyway, that's my 2020 view on social media. Just really where my current mindset is right now. I don't mean it to sound negative, because I think social media has a lot of value. This year has just been really hard. And I think the pandemic has really fine-tuned that, because people still can't agree on the science of the pandemic, can't agree on how to deal with it. It's really hard being home. I was just me and Andrew on Christmas, and like seeing other people like meet with their families and things like that. And it's like, I don't want to always be judgmental, but it's like, I just feel like our society is we're so divided in so many different ways. It's like, no, there's no one little thing that we all seem to not agree on, but like, I don't know, can see from the different angles without it turning into some sort of negativity. I don't know. Smarter people than me have talked about this. But what I think is my goal with my Commonplace project this year is to share the things that I have enjoyed, that I've learned from, things that I might not even necessarily like, but just like it's, stuck with me somehow, and to kind of make that public in a way to kind of offer that as, instead of me saying like, oh, I read this good book, it's like, I read this cool book and here's my favorite quotes and here's what I liked about it and here's other books that are related to that if you're interested in it. Like, I think you would like this if you are also into these things. And then also get that from other people. I would love if all of my friends and I would just do like a Commonplace project swapped. So that's kind of like my selfish motivation for this stream. So I'm hoping that everyone else also makes cool Commonplace projects and we can all share, let me check on the chat. I'm just babbling. I hope everyone's not like, you're wrong. Let's see. Less hot takes would be nice. Yeah, it's like I go back and forth on that. It's like people should feel like they can share a hot take, because also sometimes hot takes, they change depending on the person and the perspective that they're bringing to that. So I don't always think that that's like inevitably bad. I do always get a little bit, I get anxiety when I see that unpopular opinions threads, because what ends up happening is that there are a lot of genuinely good opinions that come out of that. Like, why are they unpopular? Are they unpopular because, a certain faction of society has deemed them unpopular, but they're actually like important things that we should be talking about? Or is it just like a chance to hate on things? I don't know. I don't really have an answer to that, but I don't know. The fact that everyone is coming at it from different angles makes the conversations feel unwieldy and sometimes imbalanced. There's a lack of nuance that makes social media unbearable. That's where I think a lot of my issues lately come with it. I feel like we don't really give anyone else the benefit of the doubt. Like, I saw a thread this morning about someone who was like, I can't believe that anyone would be or saying Happy New Year for the new year, because this year sucks and next year is gonna suck. And it's like, okay, I totally understand how it feels that way. You can totally feel that way. But then they were like going into other people's threads who were like saying Happy New Year and like telling them that. And I was just like, I just don't know what's the goal there, because not everyone has the same perspective on one single thing. And I just don't really like how we foist our own perspectives on other people without really like understanding that there is nuance there. I don't imagine that anyone who is saying Happy New Year right now today is saying that like 2020 was the best year of my life. But also, if it was the best year of someone's life, like, that's okay too. You're allowed to have a good year. I don't know. I just thought that was an example of like, what's happening here? Like, how are we interacting with each other? What's the goal of these interactions? Is this a net positive for the world, or are we not really, like, I don't know. How can we better respect people's perspectives without just yelling at everyone? I don't know. Speaking of yelling, I keep having dreams that I'm yelling at people. So that probably gives you an indication of how I feel lately about society. I had a dream, I think a couple weeks ago, that I went to the mall, which I haven't gone to the mall in like forever, especially not this year. And no one was, it was crowded and no one was wearing masks. And I just started like screaming at people who weren't wearing masks. And of course I was wearing a mask, but I was like screaming and it was just like garbled because I was wearing a mask. And then they had to have like the mall cops like come and like arrest me. Like, I just remember them like putting handcuffs on me. And I was just like, why aren't you wearing a mask? Why isn't everyone wearing a mask? And I was just like screaming. And I've had a few other dreams like that. Was the screaming at least cathartic? I don't think so. I don't know. I do feel like that should have been all of our New Year's plans, was just like, let's collectively go outside and just like scream. Like, that would be kind of fun. I don't know. Would that be fun? Is that fun? Is that fun for 2020? Collective scream hour sounds nice. I know. I just think we should just go outside and like howl at the moon and just let it all out. I mean, I feel like in a way it would feel kind of comforting to like go outside and hear someone else just like, well, okay, actually now that I'm saying that doesn't sound comforting at all. If you just walked outside and someone was like screaming, I would be very alarmed. But I feel like if we planned it out and said like, this is the scream time, then it wouldn't be as scary because you would like expect it, you know? I don't know what I'm talking about today. Instead of a ball drop, we just scream. Yeah. Let's see. We had the 8 p.m. howl for like the first 2 months of quarantine. Really? I'm honestly into that. I feel like there could be something cool and like communal about doing that together. Wow. Okay. Scream time would be terrifying, though. I might be able to get on board with howl time. Yeah. I feel like we would all have to agree on what's the sound of our collective anguish and release. We did that in New Mexico as well. What the heck? How we didn't do that in Reno, and Reno's weird. So I feel like that's something that we would have done, you know. We're the land of Burning Man. So that's kind of like, seems like it's in our wheelhouse. Anyway, something to do for next year. Let's talk more about Commonplace. So this is my Commonplace page. And as you can see, it's not the most beautiful page ever, but I wanted to kind of talk about how I'm using Notion for it, because what I decided when I was thinking about how I wanted to do how I wanted to do my digital Commonplace, I was trying to figure out, like, do I want to do like a digital version of my iPad where it's still like handwritten and kind of like scrapbooky, but all like digitized that way, or like how did I want to do it? And I decided to do Notion because Notion is the tool that I'm using all day, every day. I actually made a copy of my, excuse me. Oh, that's gross. I don't want to burp on stream. Sorry. I made a copy of my headquarters page that I was going to show you because I basically totally changed it from the blog post that I had put on my blog in like November, I think. And I am really liking it, but it really just goes to show you that you don't ever have to keep your systems 100% the same. I'm always changing things, and that's why I like tools like Notion, is because I don't have to ever stick to one specific layout. I can always change things out. I can get rid of things that aren't working for me anymore and things like that. So I decided to use Notion for this because of a few reasons. One is that I love the relational database feature, which I'm going to show you in just a second. I love the way you can really like nest notes within notes. It's just a really great way to jot down those little like comments and quotes that I'm, hoping to document throughout the year. Like the article that I just read mentioned, like that was really what the purpose of a Commonplace book was to really jot down those things and have an easy way to do that. And the reason people use notebooks for that purpose is because you can just pull out your notebook and do that. Obviously, you can still do that. I feel kind of similarly about Notion, where now that we have smartphones, it's easy enough to just pull out your app and just pop something into your Notion account. So I liked it for that purpose. I also really like Notion for its searchability features, which is funny because I guess a lot of people find Notion searching not great, but I find it like it's like a lifesaver for me. And since I've really adapted a lot of my processes this year, Notion being searchable is a really important factor in my process because I don't worry now as much about laying out like, a page perfectly. As long as the information is somewhere in my ecosystem and I can find it through search, then that works for me. Because what happens is that over time we build out this incredible archive of all the things that we've learned and documented. And I find that tools like this are really great for that. I think you could do something similar with OneNote, Evernote. I mean, there's like so many tools. Notion is just my tool of choice. So I will say that my disclaimer here is that this is a work in progress. I actually didn't want to like perfect it, again, getting away from perfectionism, because I don't 100% know how I want to like structure my Commonplace project next year. I have started this as kind of an experiment, and so I very well might change this all in a week or so, depending on how I feel, or maybe in a couple months, because my goal is to use this all throughout 2021. I have made it public. The thing though with making a public Notion page is when you use relational databases, they get kind of funky for people who are outside of your account. So I will, I think I already made a bit.ly. I think it's bit.ly/scribemindcp. I'll put a link in there at the end of the stream. If I start to do it now, I'll get distracted, and I try to limit my distractions during a stream because it's very easy for me to be like, oh, new thing to talk about or whatever. But it is public, but I will say that it might not be as, it might not work as well with some of the relational databases. So let me give you just an overall tour. So I want to use my Commonplace as a place to share the things that I'm actively consuming media-wise, because that is where a lot of my learning comes from. And when I say learning, it's not just learning like traditional learning stuff. It's just I'm always learning from any piece of art that I consume. There's some sort of like takeaway that I have from that, whether it's like a favorite song lyric or, a quote from a book, or the style in which the book was written, or something like that, where I just feel like it impacts my creativity a little bit. It, I don't know, it like maybe changes my perspective on something. So when I say learning, that's really what I am referring to. It's not just like things that I'm actively studying, which is a part of my Commonplace, but not like the whole thing. Let's see. I appreciate your inclusion of media that you consume. I took that into account when you first talked about utilizing Notion. That stuff is important too. Well, I feel like for me, and probably for other people in the chat, like I'm an avid reader. I love to read. I'm also a writer. So whenever I read, even if it's not actively like studying literature to become a better writer, it does impact my ability to be a storyteller. And so I like to document those kinds of things. But I feel similarly about like shows and movies that I watch and music. Music for me is huge. Taking in media is integral to creativity. I fully believe that. I really believe that. I've been reading so much more in the past couple of months. I actually did meet my reading goal for this year, which I wasn't at the end of the year. I was kind of like, if it happens, it happens. I'm not going to force it. But I ended up meeting it like organically. I had set a 20 books goal for 2020, because of the number 2020. And I ended up meeting that, and it felt really good to kind of meet that metric. But what felt good is that I didn't care that much about the goal. And then when I met the goal, it was like, cool. But I wasn't so hung up on like that being the metric. Like if I'd only gotten to 18 books, like whatever, I only read 18 books this year. That's not that big of a deal. Like I enjoyed the books that I read. I made reading a priority. But there was also a lot else going on. So if I didn't meet it, it's not the end of the world. I feel like that's kind of, again, goes back to this like shift in thinking about perfectionism, because I think that I like setting reading goals. I'm very goal oriented. I'm very like metrics oriented. So when I can set a metric for myself in my life, that tends to be motivating for me. But it can also send us on this everlasting like roller coaster and like guilt trips. Like I didn't want to beat myself up if I didn't meet 20 books this year. Like these are only things that I'm setting for myself. Like we got really caught up in the arbitrary expectations we placed upon themselves. I am 100% like that. I totally get it. So it was kind of nice to have kind of forgiven myself. Not that I needed forgiving for like the amount of books that I read, but that's the way our brains work. We hold ourselves accountable sometimes for the wrong things, and then we like guilt trip ourselves, and then that's really like demotivating. Like I'm excited now to just continue reading more. I'm actually going to set a pretty ambitious goal for 2021 to read 50 books, because first of all, if I don't meet that, who cares? It's just for fun. But if I do, like that would be really cool to have read 50 books. And I also feel like I've really been diversifying the types of books that I'm reading. Normally I gravitate toward fairly chunky books, usually like historical fiction. And so sometimes those books do take longer to get through. And so usually my goal is around 20 books a year. But I feel like I've been enjoying reading lots of nonfiction. I've been reading lots of weird sci-fi. I read a couple poetry books this year, which were so wonderful. I really want to read more poetry. And it's like, those are books that I could read in an evening, but I still have the same amount of value and takeaways from those. So I don't know, 50 might be actually achievable. I almost just smacked my mouse totally off of my desk. So that's why I have this space here for what I'm currently consuming. And as you can see, I have this section I might rework a little bit. I actually haven't started Bridgerton yet. It's on my list. I put a couple of things here just to kind of fill this out so I could demonstrate how this works. I actually haven't watched Girls in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I only really started watching Girls because of Adam Driver, and I am not ashamed to say that, because I don't know how I feel about Girls. I don't know, I have lots of thoughts. But again, like this, it's kind of nice to document my feelings on things and being conscious of the media I'm consuming, because I don't believe in guilty pleasures. I think if you enjoy something, just enjoy it. You don't need to apologize for it. I used to always like be weird about like, I've always loved reading romance novels, but when I was like an English major, you don't want to like, there's like a weird attitude toward that. Now it's like, hell no. Also, lots of romance writers were also English majors, so whatever. But it's like, I don't believe that we should really have guilt over things. But I also do think that we should be aware of the types of media that we're consuming and why. So I think there's a balance there. But yeah, I don't know. Girls has been interesting. I feel like I'm watching it as like an anthropologist, because I think in a way I was probably the target audience for this show, but I do not relate to it whatsoever. And I find that interesting, because I think I was around the same age as the characters are in the show. And I just like, I find them all totally insufferable. And yeah, it's super unrelatable. Yeah, I guess I'm also just like, I don't know. Anyway, it's an interesting show. I'll probably finish it. I have kind of like my interest has petered out a little bit. So I would like to finish it. But again, I am no longer really a completionist about things either. That was something that has not been easy for me to kind of let go of. But really, life is too short and there's too much good art to consume to stick with the things that we aren't loving. And I also find that sometimes it's just a matter of mood. And I go through moods throughout the year where if you ask me again in a month and my mood will probably be totally different in terms of like the kinds of things that I'm currently into. I like to go through like genre and like aesthetic moods throughout the year. And at this point, like I've been like this since I was a kid, that I know my moods really well. And I know like what types of books I'll enjoy reading at certain times of the year. So what I do is like, I just keep a log of all the books that I want to read. But I just know that like, just because a book is the new hot book, if I'm not in a mood to read it, I probably won't read it. And I just kind of go with my own whims because it's the one area of my life where I feel like I can just kind of go with my whims, you know? And so, yeah, I also find that I like to revisit things when I feel like I am in a better mindset for it. So for example, I actually just finished this book last night, Authority by Jeff Vandermeer. I love his books, but they're not books that I could read. I'm not in a mood to read his books year round because they're like weird sci-fi books. And they're really, when I'm in the mood, they're like the perfect book for that mood. But if I'm in my like phase where I only want to read like dark fantasy or like historical fiction or contemporary romance, then it's like I'm not even going to attempt to read that book then because I just know that I won't really be super into it, you know? So I just feel like these are things you just learn for yourself. But I like having the option to revisit things when I'm, you know, in the mood for it. So this is where I'm using a few relational databases here, as you'll see. And so these are all connected to this big old chunky table that I will probably be adding to over the course of the year. And so as you can see, there's lots of content on here already. And basically this is kind of like in Notion, you can create like kind of your master table or board. As you can see, there's a few different options here for how you can lay out your data, which is another reason why I love Notion, is because you don't have to just use the same format for things. If you don't like to use a spreadsheet format like this table, then you can easily switch it. I think I have my database locked. Let me actually unlock it. Where the heck do I unlock my database? I don't remember. Oh, there we go. You just have to click on it. I was like, I felt like it was something easy. So what I could do now, just for an example, is that I could add a view and I could change the way this data looks very easily. So, and also this somewhat depends on like the kind of information that you're storing. So for example, you might have seen that there is a calendar view here. That would be great if I had dates for all of these things that I've added. And eventually I will, because then when I switch to that calendar view, this information will be displayed on the calendar in the right section. But if you don't have a calendar column, then changing it to a calendar view isn't necessarily the best way to see that data. Does that make sense? But I feel like when you can really understand that about Notion, you realize that you have so many options for how you can display things for yourself. So for example, this table is the same data that you see here. What I have here are just board views, gallery views. So you can see just the card versions here. And I have filters on them to only show me the category that corresponds with the header. So I set this to only show me books that I was actively reading because I don't want every single book that I put on my list to show as a card here. Also, I finished 2 of these books, so I need to probably mark those off. And same for this. So this is like my currently watching. I have both a film and a TV series section here. So that anytime I add to my big table and I categorize it as a film and I also say that I'm currently watching it, it'll show up automatically there. And then same for listening. So I did this with podcast and music. And so as long as, and actually I set up my, my filter a little bit smarter this time where I actually set up the main filter and then added a filter group. And so again, this gets a little technical, but I'm basically just like showing you quickly how you can filter your information to only show you exactly what you want in the areas that you want it to be, which I find really awesome about Notion and why I thought it would be such a good fit for my Commonplace. Only decently related. This Is How You Lose the Time War is probably my favorite book of the year. Oh my God. It's so good. I bawled at the ending. I was so moved. It's so weird. It's another one of those like weird, I don't even really think of it as like sci-fi. At some point it's like, what's sci-fi and what's fantasy? I know, again, smarter people than me have like debated that for years, but it's kind of like that, it's just a weird book. It's so beautiful. This is another aspect of my Commonplace that I haven't fully nailed down, but I started to put my favorite quotes in here. This is like a tiny fraction of all the stuff I highlighted while I was reading it, because I was just like, oh my God, this passage, like, oh my God, this passage. I have a passage that's like a whole page that I need to just import into here. Another thing that's cool about Notion, just as a related point, is like if you read ebooks, it's really easy to copy like a quote from something. You just highlight it or share it depending on the app you use. I use the Nook app, the Kindle app, and the Libby app, and they all have ways to like highlight a passage, and then you can like send it to yourself. You can like email it to yourself. You can copy and paste it. That's the one I use the most, is like if I'm on my tablet. And I usually don't do this while I'm reading. I kind of do this at the end, just so I don't like break my flow, but I'll highlight the passage, and then later I will go and I will copy and paste that passage into my Notion page. So it's something that I plan to do more of next year with my page. And actually something that I really want to do is come up with what's my template page for books, movies, etc. Because in Notion, it's really easy to create like a template for yourself, and then you can duplicate that as a template. You basically just say like template, and once you have it set up already, you can use that on other pages. So what I want to do is set up like my template, which would probably be something like this, probably like the cover of the book, because I like to have pictures of things, just my general thoughts. Clearly I love this book. Oh yeah, this will be cool as a weird musical. Just because I thought like the change in perspective would be really neat. Because I've been thinking like, how would you adapt this book into like a movie or a show? And I'm not saying it needs to be. It was just more of a thought experiment. Like, how would you? Because it's so abstract. And I'm not sure, but I felt like a musical could be cool because you could have this like the different tones of the two, protagonists, like voices, because their voices that you read are very different. It's also very lyrical. I don't know. Hit me up, Hollywood. And it reminded me of The Fountain, which is one of my all-time favorite movies that I think is kind of a polarizing movie. But that movie has some really weird, abstract time travel stuff in it as well. Loosely reminds me of that, but just had some of like the beautiful, like the garden stuff really reminded me of The Fountain. Anyway, yes, I also love this book. So glad you also liked it. This seems to be a popular one for good reason. It's wonderful. A really beautiful, special, unique, weird. It's very weird. And I say that like in the best way. I haven't seen that movie in so long. Yeah, I remember saw The Fountain while on a date with someone in college. And I have very, very, very specific memories of that date. And for some reason, I just associate The Fountain with like that time in my life. But it is one of my favorite movies. I'm going to take a tea sip. ASMR. Actually, I don't like gulping noises, so that kind of ASMR would be like my personal hell. Yeah, I saw it in college too. Yeah, they like played it at the student union. So I was there with a guy who really liked me. Just saying. Oh, wow, that sounded so conceited. I liked him too. Hence why I was on a date with him. So yeah, anyway, I want to come up with like a really cool way to track my quotes and my general thoughts on these on the books that I read. So that's something that I will be adding. But I just kind of have a general template here that you actually, again, you can't see all this information on the table view because you can control what you see. So another reason why I think that Notion is so powerful is like, you don't have to have these overly cluttered, unwieldy, databases or galleries or spreadsheets. You can really like refine what you want to look at, what information you want to find. And also, if I search for it, it would bring up this page. Like, so I don't even have to always have it immediately available. I did give it 5 out of 5. My rating score for books is basically, did I finish it? Did I like it? 5 stars, which I know is not very discerning, but that's just how I feel. Sometimes I give most things 4 stars, but I don't know. It's easy to get 5 stars for me with pretty much anything. Same with like movies. Like if I liked it, if I really liked it, if I might revisit it, if it left an impact on me in whatever way, then it's like 5 stars. That's my criteria. So this is what I think is like super, super cool. And so let me show you, like, if I say that I finished it, it will no longer show now in my currently reading. So it's not something that I'm always having to drag and drop things. I basically just put it into the table and then let these other sections kind of filter things out as they will, which is really cool. Because sometimes, like, if I don't end up watching Girls for like another week or so, I'll probably just take it off of that list and I'll just say like to watch instead, and then it won't be there in my currently watching. But what's cool is, like, if I am actively reading or watching something and I want to pop a quote into that, then it is readily available for me and I can just like click on it and open it. So what I need to do now is kind of do my post reading system, which again, it takes me like no time at all. I'll probably give this one 4 stars. I liked it a lot. Liked Annihilation probably better. I'm excited to read the 3rd book in this trilogy though. There's like some little details here that I'll fill out. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I think that the more time we have to spend filling things out in our own systems, the less we're going to do them. Because if every single time I finished a book, I like force myself to write a ton of paragraphs about it and do this whole thing, I would just never do it because it takes away some of the fun of it. But I want to remember some of the takeaways. And of course, just like highlighting books makes that super easy because I already have a bunch of content that I can pop into this page that I know that later it'll be fun for me to go back and look at later, and just be like, oh, that was a cool line, or that was verbiage that I liked. And I do feel like from a writing perspective, doing that is helpful because I do like to study the way people write. What a concept, right? But I do like to study, like, what do I like about certain types of writers? Not to copy, but just to, have that synthesized into my own voice as a writer. Because there's, not every writer that I read is my favorite writer, but I feel like I can learn something from every book that I read. And so I like to remember quotes for that reason. And sometimes it does kind of kickstart your own ideas. And I really love the idea of creatives never starting from scratch. Again, this is not plagiarism. This is not copying. It's using other work, other creativity to kickstart your own. Because I think that if you have like a log of great quotes that you read, like, then you are like, I want to write my own really good line. And then you kind of can kickstart your own project from there. So just something that I use to keep myself inspired and motivated. I do feel like whenever I'm reading books, I write so much more and it comes so much easier. Not that writing is ever easy, but just like the willpower to write that part I don't have to fight as much when I'm actively reading. I'm always kind of thinking of like my own story ideas in my head, and something about reading books like illuminates a lot of those things for me. Even if the book is totally different genre, not even the same story, it helps unlock the literary things in my brain. I find the same for illustration. The more I read, the more things I think of to draw. Oh, I totally can see that. Yeah, I just think being immersed in and I feel like a lot of writers are like, well, I don't want to read books, especially in the genres that they want to write in, because like I don't want to copy other people's ideas. It's like, you're not copying. Everything in life is a synthesis. Like, we're always like taking in information and like, rethinking it, and it becomes part of who we are. And so it's okay to take that perspective on it. You're not copying. You might be copying. Don't copy, don't plagiarize, but you'll know the difference between what's your work and what you're copying from someone else. And I also think that as you're learning a skill, it's okay to copy when it's just for your own use. Like if you, there was a activity that I did in a poetry class in college where we basically had to rewrite an existing poem. And I picked The Wasteland from T.S. Eliot. That's one of my all-time favorite pieces of literature. I'm curious if I still have that somewhere, but we basically had to just like rewrite the poem. And there was a couple ways that we could do it. We could actually use like the same format, like the same like wording, the same cadence, and write our own version of like the same themes. Or I don't know, there was just like, we had some options there, but I found that to be a really impactful exercise because I think it is good for building a skill set. Doesn't mean that I would publish that poem. But I don't think that everything is about the end goal. Sometimes things are just about learning your skill set. So I think that if you can take that perspective with the media that you consume, you can get some really great, work out of that for your own use. Anyway, I don't know why I just went on that tangent. I guess just to explain that, like, I like to keep documented logs of, quotes and things like that I have enjoyed for that purpose. Same with composition too. Listening to similar music makes it possible to write. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I find imitation great for learning. Yeah, that really is what it's about. And I think that we are always thinking about the work that we create as like the end goal, the audience view. But I think if we invest more time into the work that we produce just for ourselves as practice, that's so valuable. And you also then learn to weed through your own personal, like, not great work. And so by the time you really find the good piece, in your heart, like, okay, this I know is truly good because I've spent the time working on a lot of things. I've talked about this before where a novelist, had recommended like writing practice novels. It's like, yeah, it seems like a lot of time to invest in writing a book. But once you've written one whole book, it might not be the best book ever, but you've done it, then you can do it again and do a really, like, you can kind of elevate your skill set based off of what you learned from that experience. But I think if you put too much stock into one project, I don't know, it's a lot mentally. And sometimes if that project doesn't work out, then it feels even worse because you have dedicated like so much time and energy to it. So I don't know. It's all just a process. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so that's how I'm using relational databases in a cool way. And another way that you could, this view is going to look kind of gross, but I'm just going to show you. So I could turn this into a table. I would have to set up my filter again because the filter is specific to the view, which I think is really cool because once you set those up once, you never have to set them up again. But I would have to set it up here. So right now it's pulling in every single thing from my table, as you can see. It's kind of a lot. So if I wanted to only view my reading stuff here, I would have to create a filter. Let's see, it would be type, I think nope. What did I set this as? Medium. So it would be book. So now it's only showing me books here. And then I like the filter group instead of a filter for changing like the status. So what I could do here is like, if I wanted to create another medium, I could probably add magazine, for example. Then I could add another filter right below this one that would say medium is magazine. And then my filter group would be related to the status. So for example, I would say I'm reading. So now it would only show me those two things, which are the things that I'm currently reading. So that's like, I think one of the best aspects of Notion is doing that. And gosh darn it, I almost again just like set my mouse flying into the wall. So I think that's really cool. Something to play around with. And also to set up a relational database, it's really easy. Oh, this is like my weird mood board thing. I'm so cool and edgy. I have a Banksy thing on there. I actually do like this though. If you get tired, learn to rest, not to quit. I think that's so true for creativity. Also, I saw this picture. I'm sorry I don't have credits. Again, this is like my personal one. So I need to find the source of this, but I love this beautiful balcony and this like city beyond. I'm like, I just miss being out in like a city and like being part of the world. So that's my current mood board, but I had made a mood board page here because I'll probably end up switching these out throughout the year, of course, but I can put these into my mood board page, and I already put one in there, and have a total log of all the things that I found, inspirational throughout the year. And so I think that that's another cool use of Notion is like, I don't always have to have these here. And I think I can just pop that in there that way. And then now I have my mood board stuff all in one place. So that's fun. So I think this whole view here, this whole top view, I'll probably end up changing throughout the year. I just kind of was starting to set it up to just get my thoughts in order. I don't have any quotes here yet. This is actually just a call out feature in, I hope it's Adam Driver. Sent you a nice inspirational picture for your mood board. Yeah, the art piece that you had gotten me for Christmas, the beautiful art piece, Kayla. Unless you sent me some, or it was not Adam Driver. I mean, Kayla does send me lots of wonderful Adam Driver pictures. Oh, I'll have to, oh, it was Adam Driver. Okay, I will have to look. Oh, okay, it's in Discord. That's why I haven't seen it yet. I was like, because Kayla sent me a beautiful Christmas card with like a Matryoshka doll on it and a beautiful illustration, like a Baba Yaga type illustration And I was like, yeah, those are wonderful mood board additions. But yeah, it's also Adam Driver. It was funny. I sent Kayla a Adam Driver picture yesterday, and I also had Pinterest open, and I ended up looking. You know how you can see something and click on a picture and it shows you like your related posts, and so I of course clicked on it because it was the Adam Driver picture that I just sent to Kayla, and so like both monitors were just like all Adam Driver's faces. I was like, wow. I hope my husband doesn't come home right now because he's gonna think, well, he already knows, but you know. Okay. So that's a mood. So yeah, so that's kind of another cool use case of Notion is that you can just drag and drop things into there. You don't always have to have things static. So while I think that using a notebook is just as cool of a use for a Commonplace, this also might be a consideration for you. Like if you want to be able to more quickly update your notes or layout, or to maybe put your things into an archive, I think is really nice. And so that's kind of how I'm treating like that page there, is that this is like my mood board archive. And then I have a 2021 quotes archive. So when I want to switch out the quote here, I don't have to have 10 quotes there. I can just have one at a time. And then I can move them into the quotes archive when I am done with them, or when I'm ready for the new one. Then I've been kind of using this area as just a general notepad. Again, I'm going to probably put these things into here, but this is kind of like probably what a lot of the Commonplace books were in the past, or just things that you hear about or learn about that you want to remember. And so I wrote down that it's like Dante's, it's the 700th anniversary of his death in 2021. And I was like, doing a Divine Comedy related project could be fun. And I was just thinking about that. That's the kind of things that I think about. And then I'm really into music projects that help you focus, because I really find that they really work for me. I always thought they were like weird, like pseudoscience-y type things, and I'm kind of a skeptic about everything in my life, but I really find that like these cool music projects like are really helping me focus for both creativity and just like general productivity. So I wanted to just like note them, and I have some more thoughts and notes that I probably will add to this section. So again, like this section I might actually make a lot bigger, because I have a feeling I'll probably be using it a lot, and these columns don't really need to be that big. They're mostly just easy ways for me to access the things that I'm currently consuming in case I have notes about them that I want to add. I mean, and also you can see that like these aren't really super serious things. I'm listening to Dungeons and Daddies, which is awesome. Probably my favorite actual play show. And I say that as someone who cannot pay attention to any actual play show that I ever listen or watch, and I feel really bad about it. But that one somehow like keeps my attention. This is the album that I think, did I put anything in here? Oh yeah, I put a couple of my favorite tracks in here. I should have embedded these the same way. That's annoying. One I think I had embedded as a bookmark. One I think I did an embed for. So another option you have in Notion is like all the ways that you can actually store stuff there. And yeah, so really the bulk of this page, and again, I'll probably eventually filter this to be less long, because this page is going to get kind of unwieldy throughout the year. These are just things that I have on my mind now, and it's not even January yet. Tomorrow's January, and I've already been thinking about all this stuff. And mostly I just wanted to, start filling this out so that I could have some examples for you. But you can see here that there's just the different categories, and that's what helps me to sort and filter things in the other section. Let's see what else I have here. Oh, my monthly archives. Oh, so this is another example of a relational database. I keep a huge archive of notes. Let me actually, is there anything here that I want to share publicly? I don't think so. This is actually I have a few notes pages. This is kind of my like main creative one, but throughout the year I document articles that I read, or like emails and or podcasts, or just things that I want to take notes for. And actually, like the Commonplace stuff that I shared with you earlier was one of my notes that I had kept here, that I had added here like months ago. And so what's really cool is like, again, you don't have to start from scratch. If you have read about something or learned about something before and you want to bring it up again for yourself, then you can just search your archive and you already have it there. And sometimes it's just like quotes. Like this quote is like, learning is teaching is living. I just thought that was a cool quote. And so I just add that here because if I want to mention that in an email that I want to write for my patrons, for example, or I want to share that with a friend who, is a fellow writer, then I don't have to like hunt through a bunch of stuff for it. It's just all here in one place. I say one place, even though I do have a few different notes pages. I have like a page that's like a swipe file. I don't know if anyone keeps a swipe file. I think it's kind of a marketing thing, but swipe file I think is invaluable for creatives. That would actually be a fun kind of related stream to this, where it's basically a way that you document things that you think are cool. Like I always like store people's like landing pages that I'm like, wow, this is a really beautifully made landing page. When I make a landing page next, I want to take some of these like ideas and use them in mine. Again, not copying. It's more about like, oh, how they like did the spacing, or you know, like cool illustrations that they use, like the style that I like that I could commission someone to do for my page. So yeah, I think a swipe file is super awesome. And it's basically just a way for you to clip your inspiration and always have a place to, you know, be inspired. And like I use one at work. We have a really incredible swipe file. It's like super robust, but like when we are writing a headline for an article, we go to our swipe file and we have like this like list of like 100 headlines that have been published, and it kind of just like kickstarts the ideas for how you can write a headline for your article, so you don't have to just start from scratch again. Because the more we can alleviate that part of our brains, the true creativity comes out, because we have given ourselves some limitations there and are focusing on the things that really matter when it comes to being creative. So something to think about. So I had planned to actually connect this to my Commonplace. And so my goal there was that as I'm adding notes, then they will appear here automatically. And I think, did I set 1 week ago, 1 week from now? I don't think I've actually added a note in the past week, so I don't think it has anything to pull from here. But what will be cool is like over the year, I'll be able to see all the notes and all the things that I've read or taken notes on, like in this one place. And again, I might move this somewhere else. I feel like my media list is far less important than the other things that I'm going to document on here. But just for now, it just seemed to be the most, the easiest thing to set up. And also, since I'm actively thinking about the books that I want to read, I'm planning out my book club for my Patreon group. By the way, if you want to join the book club, it's going to be super awesome. It's quarterly. It will be guided. It won't just be like, you just have to do a bunch of work yourself. All you have to do is read a book, probably about creativity or writing or something like that. I'm going to let my Patreons vote next week on the book that we're going to read first. So I basically have just been keeping track of things I want to read so I don't forget anything, because if I don't write things down, I will forget. So that's how the notes will work. I'm sorry I don't have more to show you there, but there will be more as I actually add to my notes again. But what's also cool that I'm excited to try out are my monthly archives. So again, I'm making use of a lot of the automated table, relational database features in Notion to keep these pages automatically updated, so that at the end of every month, oh, we do have notes here. I don't know why they're not showing there. I'll have to look at my filter. So for example, I am going to have a notes section here. So any note that I add in January will show here, which will be cool, because then when I look back on my January archive, I will be like, oh yeah, I read that blog post in January. I got this out of it. Oh, I listened to that podcast this month, etc. I have a little mood board here. I don't know why I'm really obsessed with neon right now. This happens to me again, my weird phases every year. I always like neon, cool, fresh, modern stuff in like January, just because it's like the start of a new year. So I've been like looking at a lot of cool neon art. Also, I really want a neon sign for my office of my little Scribe Mind logo. I think that would be really cool. And Reno is known as the Neon Babylon, which I think is the coolest name because we have a lot of neon here in Nevada with all the casinos and the weird places that we have. So anyway, neon's cool. But I had used this spot as kind of a makeshift mood board. So my goal is to kind of use these as pages to kind of sum up like what I learned, what I did throughout the month. And so what's cool is that I can make all my databases just connected to each other, so that and I need to actually add this one too. So actually I can quickly show you how to do that, because I think that that's really valuable. So I'm going to show you in the menu just so you can see. So what I would do is I would start by creating a linked database, and then I would look for my media. Oops, my keyboard might not be charged because I cannot type any words. I was charging it, and then I decided to show you how cute it was, and then I never plugged it back in. So yeah, we're going to create a linked database, and then I'm going to search for media. And so this brings up my media table that was above here. And you can see the path from the ScribeMind 2021 Commonplace, so I know it's the right one, because what you might find is that you have tables that are named the same thing, and so this will help you identify the right one. So I'm going to click that. And so what this does, oops, I think it, let me actually make this a full size thing. Oh no, there we go. Oh, I can actually just do that. Sorry. It's always weird like doing a tutorial. Okay, so now you can see that this is like the full table. And so what I would do though is create a filter that would only show me things from certain dates. So I would say, I'd probably use the finished date for this. So I would say it is within, I would say it is after exact date. So I would say tomorrow, and also or before the 31st. Okay, sorry, I know that was clunky. Sometimes when I'm doing something, it's like hard for me to talk at the same time. So basically the goal of this is that it will, oh, that actually should be and, sorry. It will pull in all of the media that I have marked as being finished between that time. And so what I would do is set that up for every month. And so I don't even have to touch anything once I set up that initial linked database. It'll just automatically show me all the things that I finished that month. And if I didn't finish it, then it wouldn't go in that table anyway. So that I think will be a fun way to see, like, just when I look back at the year this time next year, I will be like, oh yeah, I forgot that I like watched that show in January. Yeah, that was a cool show. Or, you know, just like, oh, I really like that album. I find myself doing that with music a lot, where I forget that I've listened to an album that I really love, and I'll like remember it, like something will remind me of it later, and I'll be like, oh, I have to revisit that. So rather than always doing that and just expecting myself to randomly remember, because I'm sure I'm forgetting as many things as I'm remembering, then I have kind of my own personal log. So I'm excited to use that. So I will do that for every month. And again, there's really nothing to show here because I haven't marked anything as being finished during these dates. But I think that's just such a cool use of Notion. And I know I didn't make it look super easy, but it really, all it takes is a couple of clicks. And it all depends on like what you set as the data. I can use any of my column names for sorting and filtering. So yeah, I think that's really cool. So I am going to come up with a template for this page. It's kind of just a messy catch-all right now. I was just like, ooh, neon, gonna put all that in one place. And I'm excited to really have a more interesting retrospective with that. And I also will keep my notes there as well. What I'll probably do is maybe make them like 2 columns. I might change the view because I really like the table view for big lists. So when I was showing you like my notes page, like that's on a table just because there's a lot of data there and I find it easiest to input. I did just add this date added column because I hadn't actually used that before because I just never really needed to. But now that I have an application for that, I am going to start using that more diligently. So I'm not going to go back and add all these dates because I don't even remember when I added some of these things, and it doesn't really matter, but it'll matter a little bit more going forward since I'm going to use it on my Commonplace. So that's essentially what my Commonplace page is, and what my project will be this year is to better document the things that I'm learning about and thinking about and making that public and sharing that. So like I mentioned, this page is public, but it's a little wonky with the databases. So what I might have to do, since especially the notes page is actually connected to like my personal like notes page, I might have to set up its own, I don't know, own little like database which is separate from that so that I can more easily share it with you all if you're curious about it. And I'll probably be writing more blog posts and stuff about it as I experiment, because this is my first year of really doing something like this. I've always kind of kept document log of the things that I've learning. Hi, honey. Andrew just walked by. So yeah, curious what you think. Is this something that you would consider doing, or anything that you think I should add? One thing that I am trying to figure out how to add, because this is something that was a big part of Commonplace books in the past, is writing like including bits and pieces of projects that you're working on. And I tend to not like to share my creative projects that I'm working on publicly until they're about 90% done, because I just find that I don't want to get a false sense of accomplishment by announcing that I'm going to do something. I would rather just share it once it's done. This is a personal philosophy, totally just a thing that, whatever you do, I support. But I'm thinking, like, do I want to have like a page on here that has, some passages from things I'm writing? Well, I don't know. I might just put more like themes that I'm exploring rather than specific passages, just because it's not even that I'm like protective over my work, because it's not really that. I just like, I just don't like being very public about certain creative projects, because I want to finish them. And I feel like sometimes when we talk too much about them, we lose the motivation to actually finish them. And I just find like that's kind of how it works for me. Another reason I don't like to talk about things until they're almost done is because then it commits you to doing them. And if I decide, I've spent 3 months writing a book, but I'm like not super in love with it and I want to move on into another project, I haven't told people about the book. And so there's not as much there's not as many expectations there. So I don't know, just something that I'm thinking about. So I might add some more pages in here about like themes that I'm exploring, maybe the types of things that I'm working on. Like I've worked on, a lot of like adventure content in the past couple of years, but I'm kind of moving back into fiction in 2021. And I want to write some short stories. I really want to write more poetry. Because I've just really enjoyed poetry this year, and I've been writing a lot of poetry. So maybe I'll think of ways to share that in ways that make me feel comfortable. And another thing I want to talk about is like, my goal is not for this to be performative. It's really to just earnestly share. And I think it would be easy to show only things that make me look cool and smart. And I'll probably have things on here that aren't really everyone's cup of tea. And that's kind of the point. Really isn't like to impress other people. It's just to, share learnings and hopefully like enjoy other people's learnings in return. So I am not going to like overthink the things that I put on here. It is what it is. These are the things that I'm reading, watching, whatever. And I just kind of want to celebrate that, because I think we just get into these mindsets of, I don't know, having shame about certain things. It's like, I don't know, can we just like get over those things? Like what you like. I support you. We all have different tastes. And I think there's something to glean from, I don't know, all sorts of different types of media. I'm actually writing a book. So excited to see that come out very soon. Yeah, I'm never not writing a book, but I also just felt that like for a while, novels were not the best way for me to share my ideas. And actually, I'm really glad that I had gotten into like D&D adventure design when I did, because I feel like a lot of the ideas that I had were so much better suited for that medium. And I feel like we always think of like writing a book as like the end all be all of like creative success. And I do not believe that. I think it is a very wonderful thing to write a book, but I think lots of other types of creativity and creative success is exciting. And I am a firm believer that not every idea needs to be a big thing. So I really have been enjoying finding other ways to explore, lots of ideas. And so I'll leave it at that. Okay, I was just going to, first of all, any other questions about Commonplace stuff? I really would like to know if you're going to do one, because we can swap. And I hope that you'll consider it, because I think they could be really cool. We could start a cool new trend, like, hey, what's your Commonplace, Like, let's be like, can we make this like a TikTok thing? Do I sound old? I only go on TikTok to look at Star Wars things that Kayla sends me. Because I start to look at other TikTok things and I'm like, I get so annoyed. I'm like, why is this popular? And then I feel like an old. And I don't want to be curmudgeon-y, because I actually think that like every new medium is cool and has potential. And some people are doing really amazing things on TikTok. So I never want to be like a total curmudgeon. I do not like people who are like use social media to be like rude to people. Like I hated when it was trendy when people would like go through like a McDonald's drive-thru and like grab ice cream with their bare hands, and like the poor like person on the other side was like, what are you doing? Not poor person, you know what I mean? Like there's like the person watching was like, okay, like I don't get paid enough to deal with like these weird YouTubers. And I just like, I hate that kind of stuff. Like don't put people into weird positions for your weird content. Just make good content. This is a firm stance that I have. Like planking used to really bug me, because I just don't think you should inconvenience people in public places. YouTube pranksters are the scum of the earth. It just makes me uncomfortable. And I feel like sometimes I see that kind of stuff on TikTok and I do not like it. Yeah, that might be too strong. Yeah, I mean, maybe not scum of the earth, but just like inconsiderate. And I just don't think that's a good way to, I don't know. I just don't like that stuff. Just be nice to people. Can we just be nice to people in 2021? Can that be our collective resolution? I just feel like cruelty is very easy to come by these days. And I don't support like always being nice, always being positive, because I think that like toxic positivity is very real. But I think that we could do with being a little kinder to each other and just understanding that we're all collectively going through something really difficult right now. Like, don't be so hard on each other, especially the people in your lives. I think we can really be hard on each other because we expect a lot from the people in our lives. I definitely do that, but we have to cut each other a little bit of slack. That's different than calling people out for important reasons. I'm not like making a blanket statement that you should always just be nice for, whatever. But I do think that in general, we should maybe act toward each other with a little bit more kindness and consideration. This is Ashley's Soapbox Hour. Okay, so that's what a commonplace is. I hope that was interesting. I find them really fascinating. I'm really, really curious to delve into other people's commonplaces because, again, I think it'll probably inspire me to, think differently about how I'm taking notes, how I'm disseminating information. Disseminating. Now that word sounds weird. It's like one of those words that you say it and you're like, is that the real word? I don't know. I'm having a hard time lately saying words that I've only read, the reader's dilemma. I wanted to quickly show you a copy of my headquarters page because I completely redid it lately. I'm really digging it. And you might have seen my headquarters page on my blog. If not, it's at scribemind.com/blog. You'll see the post. It has an animated GIF for those of you who say GIF. But I have rearranged this. This is a copy of it because there's some private stuff on my personal one, but I wanted to just kind of give you a quick look at what my current headquarters page looks like. I will say that this is not the most mobile friendly view because I found that I haven't really been using Notion I haven't been using my headquarters page on Notion mobile as much recently. Maybe it's because I've been taking some time off and I just haven't really felt the need to really... I access Notion a lot, mostly to just like pop in notes for things. So I don't really need my headquarters page to be super mobile friendly. My other one was definitely more mobile friendly. This one is more well suited for my laptop and my desktop, a wider monitor. So something to keep in mind. But I have been really liking having the information like set up a little bit differently. So I have my week's tasks. And again, this is connected to a bigger table that I keep in a separate page. And then I just link to what's in here, 2 days after today and within the next week. So that just helps me to prioritize just what's like on kind of the immediate agenda. After today, within the next week. Oh, I need to set that to and. Okay. So you'll see because that was set to or, it was showing me or thing. It was after today or within the next week. Whereas I want it to be and because I only want it to be things that fall within both of those. That makes sense. So sometimes like setting up those, if you're not a programmer, some of that stuff, like I always have to kind of wrap my head around doing the automation, like the if this then that stuff. I actually really like that kind of thing, but it doesn't always come naturally to me. So something to think about as you're setting up your stuff. And I keep it in the table setting in this view because I like that. But I have a couple other little sections. I have my little today section with one of my favorite questions. What do I need to accomplish today to give me peace of mind this evening? And then what do I need to accomplish this week to give me peace of mind this weekend? Those are questions that really change the way that I approached project management and productivity because I only really put things on there that I know will actually give me that sense of peace in the evening. It doesn't always work, but it does help. Because I think it's really easy for us to pack on too much into our days and then never really feel fulfilled or complete at the end of the day. So I'm really trying to get out of that. This I had put here just because I really just needed a catch-all place to just jot things down for the end of the year. I had so many things to do in the past couple of weeks, like more than I usually do. All easy stuff, but just things that I need to keep track of. So I just put to-dos here as an example for you all. I did create this new area, which is my project intake area. So I think this is really helpful for any project management tool that you have. Is just, this is your general catch-all place that you can just say like for example, if you're at work and someone's like, hey, you need to like make a phone call about something, and you can say, okay, a phone call. And then, oh, I forgot I'm using the call out. And then if you're like, oh, I need to make doctor's appointment, etc. And then at the end of the day, or whenever you get some time, you can actually go through and like move these into the right areas. So for me, if it's a task, which is something that takes more than like one sitting for me to complete, then I will add it to my tasks page. It might just be something super easy, like make doctor appointment. That might even be something I just put on my, agenda for today. It's actually easier to not use the call outs, because then if I put make doctor appointment, I can then just like drag this over here, which I think is better. But I kind of like the aesthetic of having things contained in the call out box. Again, totally just aesthetic. And I think just kind of helps to contain things, but you can always change that up. My on my radar section is just like where I put things that I think of, like maybe I've heard about a book on the radio, because I listen to the radio a lot while I'm working. And so I'll just like put it on my radar section. I put my goals notes here just so I can have them accessible. I'm taking a few online courses right now, so I made this area accessible. Again, I could probably change this to gallery view or something else, but I kind of just like being able to click on the links really easily. And I like seeing the categories, and yeah, it's just nice to have my like course notes like readily available. And my sources of income, I don't know. I feel like I'm not against talking about numbers and money and stuff. I just kind of wanted to keep, these are more like goal numbers. So I kind of wanted to keep that private. I don't know. I probably shouldn't. I feel like that's like enforcing problematic views on that kind of thing. Music, I like this because I can keep my current favorite playlist, like readily accessible. And again, I have like these two things that are just like focus music projects. I like to have these here because at the start of every workday, I'll usually open one, and then I'll listen to that as I'm like really getting in the zone. And then this is like my content calendar. So these are things that are like in the works, and I'm using the board view here because I find that it works just so much better. So I can really easily drag things around based off of the stage they are in the project. And so for content, there's always multiple stages. It's not just, even as a task, there's more to it than just being able to check it off once it's done. Like usually there needs to be some sort of graphic element that I need to make. If it's ready for publishing, that means that I'll set it up on my blog or my website, and then I'll like preview it and I'll test it. And then once it's actually published and out in the world, then it's fully done. And I can actually hide this column if I don't want to see the dones, but I kind of like having it visible because it's kind of nice to see when you've actually completed stuff. But after a while, it's nice to just like clear that out, so you don't always have just like a huge list of all the things that you've done. Oh, and then in my timeline, I'm using, this is a newer feature from Notion, but I have been liking it for certain projects. I don't really have a whole lot of uses for it right now, but I just like to try things out. And again, you can switch the view, which I think is really cool. So yeah, so that's my updated homepage. I figured I would just show you all that. Oh no. Oh, it wasn't clicking, I thought. My computer was having a hard time. So yeah, let me know what you think. I just love Notion. I redid my page like late one night just for fun. Fun. All right, folks. Well, I've been talking so much, my throat is dry. Sorry. Let me know what you think of Notion, what you think of Commonplace. I just love Notion. Ashley Warren 2020. It's true. Notion has been my favorite tool this year. I've really gotten so much value out of it. And when I say value, I mean, like, again, not monetary value or productivity value. I just feel like it's been so nice to have a hub. And I really feel like I've, been able to really build it out and try new things in it. And I love how much it evolves because it's so easy to just like change things. And I like to see that progress over the course of the year. So yeah, Happy New Year's to you as well. I am going to a virtual party tonight. Actually a little worried about staying up until midnight because I've been completely redoing my sleep schedule. That's something maybe I'll talk about on another stream because it's been kind of fun to experiment. But yeah, totally virtual, 100% virtual, not going anywhere tonight. But our friends are hosting like a party, like a 20s themed party. And I guess there's going to be virtual DJs and like cocktail like making and like all sorts of fun stuff. So it should be lots of fun. So I'm going to go do that. But thank you for joining me. It's nice to get back in the swing of streaming. So I think moving forward, I'll probably try to do at least 2 streams a month, just to get back into it. Maybe back to a stream a week, because that was kind of fun. But I'm gonna ease into it. So I am wishing you a wonderful New Year's. Really hoping for the best for you all in the new year. Thank you so much for your support. Really, being able to connect with you fellow creatives this year has been the highlight of my year and really helped get through the harder times. So I look forward to doing that more with you next year. And yeah, that's all I have for you for now. So I will see you next year, which is wild to say. I hope you have a really good 2021. Gosh, I wish the same for you. All right. Bye, everyone.